So, welcome tonight to Sanctuary Online Live once again this Tuesday night. It is September 1st. Happy September to y'all. I'm just wanting to encourage you. There are 120 days left in 2020. Can I get some love on that one, huh? Only 120 days left. Not that we're counting down or anything, but anyway, I do want to just welcome you to Sanctuary Online tonight. Many of you know that we are building a nonprofit retreat center just outside of Austin, Texas. And when COVID hit, one of the ways we could still live into our mission and our passion and our goal to bring fabulous programming to people that we love in our communities was to go online. And so May 5th, we did that. We jumped online. And every Tuesday night, we've been bringing you different kinds of programming. And we really try to reach out to make sure that some nights are light. We've gone birding. We've had pet photo contests. We've gone camping, you know. So some of what we do is strictly social and just lightening things up. We've tried some community. We've got a book of the month. So we give you a book to read. And this summer, it's been some fantastic novels. We'll talk more about that tonight. I'll advertise. And then we do a conversation around that. We've been trying to do an author a month. So we have an author with a book that seems relevant to what's going on in our times. And we have an interview process with that author. And so without further ado, Mr. Ken Martin, since you're here, I will say thank you for last week. It was fantastic, Ken. And we were able to hear the story of why Ken started to write his book and his process around his book on relationships. It's called Together, 10 Building Blocks for Successful Relationship. And then we were able to engage Ken and ask some questions. And I thought it was great, Ken, how your book that is going to be relevant 365 also can be overlaid with COVID. You know, there have been different strains and stressors put on many of our relationships because of the COVID pandemic. And so to hear you answer questions for folks like that was fabulous. I will do a shameless plug that if you want to get one of Ken's books, and Ken, we've had a few folks ask not only for your book, but also for your small group discussion guide. And some churches are probably looking through that in the fall. So go ahead and mute yourselves if you need to. Anyway, revkenmartin.com is the way to purchase Ken's book. And if you'd like a small group discussion guide or to have conversation around getting Ken to your church, to your small group through Zoom, you send us a note at talktous@sanctuaryinthewoods.com and we'll begin that dialogue. So thanks, Ken. It was just a fabulous week. Many of you know Ken was asked to do 2 shows. So we've got him busy on Tuesday and on Thursday of last week. It was just fabulous. And that leads me to tonight. My goodness, where do I begin? Again, one of the questions that we posed ourselves as a board to try and say what programming should we bring was we asked ourselves, what are topics that are in the news? What are questions that our communities are asking right now? And I don't know if you've turned your television on lately, but over the last, couple months, Carly and Darcel, the United States Postal Service has been in the news, maybe under attack, maybe on the defensive. And we thought, my goodness, we've got 2 experts here to bring us both the inside scoop of how the Postal Service does Postal Service things, and also they'll field questions today. So if you've got a question around, if you're thinking of voting through the mail, how do you do that? What are the details of it? Any suggestions Carly and Darcel can give you? If they can speak from the Postal Service perspective, they will. If your question has to be answered by your state, we've got some resources at the end of the evening, some websites we can point you to so you can find information. So we've got an information-packed night. I would love you to have questions ready for Carly and Darcel. Ladies, anything else I should say besides the fact, I'm being careful here, that you have a combined 50+ years of service within the United States Postal Service. And so I think expert or diva or, I don't know, brilliant mind. What do you want to do? Just keep on going? And
yeah, they all
go on.
There's more. If you need more, it's okay.
Well, what we're going to do tonight is,
Well,
go ahead.
one other thing, Joe, real quick. Would you, would everybody, if you don't mind, real quick, just type in the chat box the state where you'll be voting, not necessarily where you are right this minute, but the state where you'll be voting this year.
Good call, Barb. And I'm going to open up tonight. Carly and Darcel and I have had some little briefing time today, and we're going to open up and see how much you know about the United States Postal Service, okay?
That's illegal, so, Becky.
What's that?
Becky said she wanted to see us in our uniforms, and that's illegal. We can only do that when we're on duty.
I'm just gonna let that go because I'm sure it could spiral into a very challenging conversation, right, ladies? So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the poll. So what I'd love you to do is, can you see the poll sticking up in, what it is? The first question is, how many pieces of mail do you think the USPS handles on an average day? Then the second question, how many pieces of mail do you think the USPS handles during peak holiday season? And a question that all of us should care about, how many pieces of mail does a processing machine process in 1 hour? So go ahead, you're now observing the poll, and you can choose one answer for each question 1, or question 2, or question 3.
Well, just hit the X for us.
As opposed to safely going in the middle. Oh, that's right.
Cue the Jeopardy music.
They call us snail mail, so we really only take out 1 piece. We just reach in the bin and grab 1 piece a day. So.
Okay, stop it. All right, I've got 7 of you voting. So if a couple of you, 8 of you are voting. I can't tell the vote. Your vote is confidential, but I can tell how many of you voted. 10 now. That's better. All right, going once.
These are, you have to think about these questions.
Does that mean you haven't voted yet, honey?
No, I voted. Mom and I had a team effort.
Did you two agree?
Well, sort of.
And did Sable come in and put her paw in? Okay.
Sleeping.
All right. 3 and 2 and 1. I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to share the results. So let me see here. Okay, I'm sharing the results. And then Carly and Darcel, maybe you can speak to those results. How would that be? Let's do question 1. How many pieces of mail does the USPS handle on an average day?
On an average day, the United States Postal Service handles 470 million pieces.
5 of you nailed it. Oh, okay. Cheryl and Mom got that one right. Edie, how'd you do? No good? You're muted, love. Press down your space bar, honey. Okay, you're just muted.
Okay, wait a minute.
There you go.
Yeah. So I got brain injuries, so I can't even really remember what I answered.
Okay. Nice out, Edie. All right, number 2. Carly and Darcel, how many pieces of mail does the USPS handle per day during peak holiday season?
During our peak holiday season, we handle 650 million pieces per day.
Whoa, so and let's see, 1 person. Who got that right? You can't remember because you're all going to claim brain injury now. There you go. Good job, Edie. Gave him a way out.
Thought it was more.
Mom, Cheryl, was you?
Ronnie and Carol, I think. Bonnie and Carol.
Well, I would like to add a little caveat. When they say pieces, they're talking about mail that is either a letter, a magazine, or a flat. This is not adding in what we handle with parcels, which would significantly increase our average. But this is just pieces that would be handled by the letter carrier to actually take out and not considered a parcel or a package.
Which again, yeah, that makes a big difference, Carly.
Right.
And also, even without that, you're still doing 200 million more pieces a day, right? So significant. And again, how many pieces does one processing machine handle in an hour?
About 36,000 pieces an hour.
Yeah, I thought I made that one kind of hard. Sorry, I was gonna do 25 to 50. So just 3 of you got that one right. So again, what I'm gonna offer though isn't that, let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing the results of the poll and take that down. And isn't that interesting then that, here we go. Reasons that you guys are impacted. Again, we're trying to stay with information tonight and a Q&A kind of platform without getting too much into the politics of why the US Post Office is impacted right now, how it is. But you know, if you think about that, many of us heard in the news that there were blue boxes, right, picked up off their blue box stations, right, you guys, and put in storage per se, that many of the processing machines were dismantled and removed out of some of the major cities. And also something that we maybe were not thinking of is that COVID-19 has just simply impacted your staffing model, right? So you push all these things in line and then add the stress or the numbers of those folks that are trying to mail their ballots in, and it pushes you into a, you know, a peak holiday stressor, doesn't it? Maybe could you two speak to that a little bit right now?
Sure. And part of it is that now that with COVID and people staying home, what's not mentioned a lot is that the people are ordering online. So it has increased our parcel volume with 90% from this time last year. So not only are we dealing with shortage of staffing due to people either being ill in general or being exposed to COVID, or having family members or not having childcare, all of those issues. When we're short staffed, we have a hard time, unlike many jobs, when a letter carrier is sick, that route does not sit that day and those people will get mail. So everyone else in the post office that's working there, every other letter carrier, we all pull together and we have to take a little piece of that route so that we guarantee that every piece goes out every day. And so with that motto in mind and trying to get the mail out, and we're being short staffed, we're seeing hours in the 12 and the 15 hour range 6 days a week for our carriers. For us, well, Missy Miss is retired over here, but
Not anymore.
for those of us that are still on the beat, you know, that's what we run into. And then coupled with, there's some boxes being taken out with the dismantling of some of the processing machines, the mail's getting to the offices where it needs to be delivered out of a little later. And it just is a genuine slowdown just because of all of those factors at once. So if we had different things happen at different times, we might not notice the slowdown, but for those major things to hit us all at once, and for the carriers to still be working that kind of workload, and a lot of our carriers are started in the 80s and 90s and they're in their 50s and 60s now, and to work all day at a really fast pace for, you know, 60, we've seen some 70, 80, 90 hours a week. So yeah, we're doing our part to get it out. It's just slower when we don't have enough people and we have all these other factors.
Well, when we were chatting earlier, Darcel, I didn't think about that, that concept of you're saying everybody is going to get their mail, right? Which means that you're a regular mail carrier picking up that slack is working more, which is putting more stress on them, making them more tired, reducing their immune system, right? So it's just yeah, wow. Thank you for that. There was a question here also that we talked about today about the U.S. receiving funding from taxpayer dollars. Before you guys answer that, how many folks here understand that the Postal Service receives funding from taxpayer dollars? How many of you think that's true?
I don't think so.
I got a couple people. I got some shaking heads. I got a hand up, Barb. I'm not sure what that means. It means clappy clappy, or it means this. Brendan, are you looking right in the middle there? You don't think it does? And Carly and Darcel?
Technically, no. But from like 1840 to 1970, we were a part of the government. And in 1970, we had a wildcat strike, and we're quasi-government. Now instead of the Postal Department, we're the Postal Service, and we are self-supporting through first-class mail and sales of postage and parcels. So
Good
the
deal.
answer to that is no.
Technically, no. I like that.
Technically, no.
So it's good.
I think that there are many people that are under the impression that we do. Many times, I'm sure you heard it in your career, which really gets my goat is to hear, you know what, I didn't get this piece today, and I pay your salary. I have heard that my whole career, and
you're like, no, actually you don't. But thank you.
Right.
And I'll make sure I'll track that package down.
Yes. If any of you know me, you know I probably didn't say that nicely back.
I know, but we're working on that, right, Carly? You and I are working on this whole presenter language thing. We worked all afternoon, actually, just for an hour to get this cleaned up, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm again, if Barb and Cheryl, if you would track when I have the slides up, I can't track the chat box. So if you track the chat box and just give me a hi sign if there's any questions. If any of you would like to ask Carly and Darcel questions, this first one was kind of just information. This first section of tonight was first information about the Postal Service and just understanding the numbers and what impact to that system, right? How that can make a dent very, very quickly and just put more stress on an already stressed system. So even if all things remain the same, if things were going well, COVID has impacted you, right? And then the blue boxes and the processing machines, and the fact that during voting this time, we're all wondering, should we vote through the mail? Should we vote quickly? Can we vote through the mail, right? Depending on who we are and what state we're in. And that leads us to this next section of Darcel and Carly's presentation about ballots and mail fraud. And I wonder if anybody, before you two, would like to tell us what is the difference or can explain the difference between an absentee ballot and voting by mail. And I asked this question of you two because I'm hearing in the news just different things about both those processes. I'm hearing whether one is safe or not, whether one can be hacked or not, whether one, how should I do this? And there's so much, I think, either misinformation or not full information. I wonder if anybody wants to take a shot at this. What is the difference between absentee ballots and voting by mail? Anybody?
Bueller?
They're the same. There's no difference.
Ann says they're the same and there's no difference. Okay, you're gonna hold on that, and that's no phoning a friend. And Sue, you're agreeing. Anybody else with a different perspective?
I believe that absentee ballots are, you are in another state or somewhere where you cannot actually vote. So you vote in abstinence or whatever. And voting by mail is you request a ballot and you send it in by mail.
Okay.
So like a service member will absentee vote.
Okay.
They're overseas or something and they will send in their vote through absentee ballot.
So Becky, you're pulling it apart a little tiny bit, making sure it's not exactly the same, but it's a lot the same and it's yet different. Anybody else? Because this is all over the news and they're throwing both terms out at us like we understand what it means.
That's basically what we thought too, that an absentee ballot means that you're not in the state in which you vote. Maybe you're a snowbird like Florida, where they're not here, but they have a Florida residence. But as she said, service people and other people, or like us, we've done mail-in votes, just,
vote by mail.
Vote by mail.
You've done vote by mail.
Yeah,
Yes.
but absentee means that you're not in the state in which you live when you're putting your ballot in.
So I'm gonna receive that, and I'm also gonna make sure you just called Cheryl and I snowbirds, right? So we're up here in Michigan now.
Yeah.
We have our official residence is in Texas.
Yep.
Right? And so Cheryl, what are we doing right now to use these two terms, just to pull this apart a little bit?
Sorry, what we're doing in Texas, you're not allowed to vote by mail unless you're over 65 or you're absolutely going to be absent from a polling place, you're from your locale during the early voting and during the actual voting day, election day. And so there's a couple of other distinctions if you're disabled or so on and so forth. But you know, typically you and I wouldn't qualify, but we requested voting by mail, and I think they called it voting by mail in Texas. I don't know for sure. Ballots, because we weren't sure if we were going to be back in Texas in time to vote. And so we've requested an application to vote by mail. So the application has to come first. You know,
yeah, let's further compound it. An application for an absentee ballot,
right?
So we can vote by mail, just in case.
Right, and then they will decide whether we can do it once we submit our application, and then so on and so forth. So that's how that's happening. Anyway.
Woo! Any more thoughts on that before we get the truth from Carly and Darcel? Good job. I appreciate y'all risking out there and, you know, going after it. Liz, you're sitting back there. I think you got something to say. You have something to say? Nothing. You're just waiting for Carly and Darcel to tell you the truth.
Question. Ken has a question.
Ken, you got a question?
Yeah.
Yes. You were talking about, like, here in Texas, Tom and I, a couple of years ago, took advantage of being able to vote by mail because of our age. And so all of the elections, primary and elections, all for everything since then, we have received our ballots in the mail. My question is to Carly and Darcel, with all of the confusion and chaos and everything reigning around this whole topic right now of voting by mail, is there anything that we and other people like us who just regularly receive our ballots in the mail, is there anything extra we should do this year just to be sure, or can we probably just wait for our ballots to arrive?
All right, Ken, great question. I'm gonna hold that because the answer to that is on the bottom of this slide as well. So okay, so we can speak to that, Darcel and Carly, when we get close. We kind of had a feeling somebody would ask that. Sue and Ann, one more thing before Carly and Darcel answer this question for us.
We have always gotten our stuff in the mail, like Tom and Ken, but this year, for the first time before the presidential election, we got, Ken, an application for a ballot by mail, even though we are over 65 and all that, which we filled out. So we've always just gotten it in the mail, but this time it came as an application instead of a
ballot.
Instead of a ballot, just FYI.
But to be sure, we're going to take ours to the actual election deposit.
Polling place, yeah. We're going to talk, great. We're going to talk about all those options that we have tonight. This is great, great question. And Liz, you know, you do have a question?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so the online application says that if you submit an application online, you have to also mail in the document within like 4 days or something ridiculous. I don't know. Then also we were talking about the amount of postage. How much postage do you put on if you are going to mail it in? And third thing is that the Travis County tax lady has made up these kind of like a bank drive-through where they're going to have, or like the COVID testing thing where you can drop off your ballot to them in person. You got to show an ID. So there's some things happening. Hopefully good things.
Yeah, some movement. Good deal. All right, Carly and Darcel, I'm going to try and craft you through this whole conversation here because Sue and Ann started out saying they're exactly the same. Becky pulled it apart a little bit, and then we had massive amounts of conversation. Why don't you clear it all up? Clear it up, babies. What is the difference between an absentee ballot and voting by mail?
Well, the real difference is on the Postal Service end, there's no difference with how we treat it. They're all the same. The ballot is a ballot, doesn't matter how you got it. But with the registrar's office in your county or your state, absentee ballots, usually they do have to be requested and the parameters have to be met if it's an age requirement, or you're out of state, or you're in the service, those kinds of things. But voting by mail, some states like California, which we are in, it's going all vote by mail now. You don't request anything. It's being sent to you. We got a notice just a week ago saying that we were to be expecting our ballot. So on the Postal Service end, we don't treat them any different, whether they say absentee ballot or whether they say vote by mail ballot. They're not treated any different. They're all treated like first class mail for us. So the difference comes in that how you actually obtain the ballot, whether it's state driven, that it's mandatory, or whether it's requested as an absentee ballot. That's the only difference.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold you right there. So everyone, I think that's a really important thing to understand, that from a Postal Service perspective, you treat this like you treat a birthday card, right? It's first class mail.
Yes.
Now, I'm gonna flip down to Ken's question, and I'm seeing this in the chat box a little bit. If we get that, and it's got a, I don't want to say bulk mail, but it's got a return. It's got a return stamp on it, right? So we just have to return it. If we put a first class stamp over that, will that make any difference to how that piece of mail is handled by the post office? Will it get there faster or more accurately, or we can be assured it gets there?
Usually that's all called, what we call it, business reply mail, and that is treated like first class. Now up in the corner, it will say postage required or no postage required, and it'll have like a set of
a barcode, and it'll say either postage required or it'll say no postage required. The stamp that's on there, it's not really a stamp, it's a printing on the envelope that is in place where a stamp would be. So it's kind of an old wives' tale to think that if you put a first class stamp on there that it's going to move any faster. It doesn't move any faster, because all of our political mail, whether it's a mailing that you get sent to your home from a different candidate, or your labor union or anything like that, all of those pieces are treated as first class mail, and they go out every piece every day, and there's no exception to it.
So Ken, does that answer your question? You're doing sign language from back there, Papa.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, it does. And Tom and I have talked about this, and we think that this year we're going to take advantage of one of the places that Ann was talking about. You know, we're actually going to take it and deliver it somewhere, partly because to relieve some of the stress, you know, that's on the postal system right now. It seems like that's a thoughtful and very secure thing to do.
I like the thoughtful part about that. We were talking about that in our prep today. But I think there's a nice point, Ken. It's we certainly don't want to put any statement that we don't trust the mail system or right? You know, for peace of mind, it actually got where it was going because you put it there, right? If your state or your county has that as an option, and again, some will, some won't. And then secondarily, Ken, yeah, it does relieve a bit, you know, a little bit helps if hundreds of thousands of people are doing it. It relieves the stress on the postal system and those non-processing machines that are embarking. So absentee balloting, voting by mail. Actually, we just learned they're pretty much the same thing, right? The question is not from the Postal Service, the question is from your county, right? So we just heard again today, Carly or Liz, you had to, and Sue and Ann, same thing, you had to request. So the ballot didn't come automatic, even though it has in years past. So we waiting for those ballots, right? We need to go out and make sure that we're doing our job, whatever county you live in, if we need to proactively request. And Sue and Ann, are you guys in Travis County?
No, we're in Comal County.
Comal County.
Okay. Anybody in Travis County? Liz, you in Travis County? And so you had to request a ballot. You're muted, love.
Yes, you would
Okay.
have to. I have not, but yes, you would have to request the application, and then we'll send you the ballot after you're approved, after the application.
After you fit within the certain parameters. Again, if you're going to vote absentee, you have to fill. Go ahead, Ken.
You know,
we actually got 2 applications in the mail. We got one which we delivered back to our county election place. And then a few days later, we just gotten a second application. The first one was pre-filled out with our names and all that stuff. And we took it back and handed it to the person and asked her to look at it and be sure that it was okay. She said it was okay. We're probably going to go tomorrow, since we got a second one that isn't pre-filled out, to be sure there's no confusion.
We've never received an application. We've just always received ballots. So my question was, is that going to be different for us this year as well, or do we know?
I know is we got an application, and we've always gotten just the ballot, like the primary, just the ballot came. So I don't know.
Papa, I would say a good thing for you and Tom to do would tomorrow to call the registrar's office in your county and give them your name and ask them if you're on the permanent absentee voter rolls. Because if they do have a permanent list based on age, then you would not have to do anything. But if they don't have a record of it, then you're probably going to have to do what Sue and Ann did and request an application, which I'm sure they would then mail out to you, and then you'll have to get it back to them. But a phone call wouldn't hurt, just to clarify that you're on the permanent absentee voter rolls.
Good, thank you. That's what we'll do.
Yep, and Carly, we're calling who exactly?
I would say the county that you're in, the registrar of voters in the county that you're in, and that's probably a simple Google search to put in registrar of voters for Travis County.
Is that Bruce?
And once again, what I want to lift up here is every county is different. So even if we're in the same state, every county is different. And so whatever happened last year may not happen this year for 100 different reasons. But we don't want to wait. The reason we're having this conversation tonight, and we pushed Carly and Darcel up to the front of the September schedule, was because even like Cheryl said, and Liz, you have to now, it's not even requesting the absentee ballot, it's requesting the application for the ballot. And that, if that has to go back and forth, and we just talked about the stressors that are currently on our Postal Service system, that by itself could take days and even weeks to go back and forth if we're really on the ball. One of the reasons this matters is because, again, in each of your states, when your ballot will be, when is the deadline for your ballot to be counted also is shifting, right? So it used to be sometimes if you postmarked it, remember any of you that have ever done your taxes, I'm talking about a friend, on the 15th of April, and you stood in line, right? And you were in there for the post line. I've been in California one night. I mean, it was a friend of mine told me that they were in their car and they were just waiting and waiting and waiting, inching forward until they could put it in, because we knew that up until midnight, we'd get that postmark and the government would count it as on time. That is not the case with your ballot this year, okay? So once again, we're asking you to come ahead and to make sure that whatever it takes to get your ballot to the registrar, where then it goes into that system, which Carly and Darcel cannot affect, it got there, and it got there early enough for that process to work. You got to ask this last question before we go to the next piece, Carly and Darcel. Can China and Russia commit voter fraud by putting millions of fake ballots into the mail stream?
Fake news. Actually, no, they cannot. I mean, they can try, but the mail that comes in from Russia and China goes to a processing center like in LAX. And as soon as a clerk starts opening up and seeing all this mail, that's going to be a red flag.
And also trust your letter carrier to notice these things. How many years were you on your route?
My last route, 12 years.
Okay, so if you figure 6 days a week for 52 weeks times 12 years, you have gone
4,380 days.
Yeah.
Right.
I still know
So-
people's names, their addresses.
So your letter carrier and the clerks that process are going to notice a lot of these things that are, one, they either look different, the weight feels different, they have a different smell, believe it or not, because things that are imported have a different smell. They have a whole different kind of soot on them that you can feel on your fingers. So trust that your clerks and your carriers are noticing these things too.
And to that end, also at the registrar's office, they have checks and balances, if you will, that they can check. They will cross-check the signature on your ballot to the signature they have on file. They have barcodes that they do. It cannot,
exactly.
It's harder for them
To commit fraud.
Yeah.
It would be
through the mail.
Really hard to do. I mean, very, very hard to do.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And part of our conversation is there's part of the US Postal Service.
Mandy and Edie have a comment too.
Okay, that is massive machines going very, very, very fast. There's also people involved that know their jobs and notice, like you're saying, Carly and Darcel, they are trained to notice shifts, changes, smells, weights, anything like that. And so I really appreciated the human touch that is, you all kind of just shared, that is inserted in the middle of that. Yeah, thank you. Mandy and Edie, question.
Oh, I have a comment. Mandy is up in Abilene taking care of her grandma. They got no Wi-Fi, so she apologizes for her absence.
Oh,
but I was gonna say that the first time I was assigned to the Pentagon, and I had to get trained on getting classified documents and packages out of the premises, and found out that you could just properly double wrap secret classified information and stick it in the mail. And if it's properly wrapped and properly marked, the Postal Service knows. So to me, that's like everybody in the Postal Service has a secret clearance. And I'm like, so that's a big organization I can trust.
Yeah.
So,
we can.
Well, what do we like to say? What we like to say is, we know where you live. We know where all of you live.
And we want that, right? We want that.
Yeah, so I think what hurts my heart about the stuff that's going on now is I see, I have always seen the post office of people who have an ethic similar to the military. They're like, I'm I'm mission oriented. I'm going to get out there and get it done. So to me, it's like a personal affront to anybody who's worn a sort of a uniform on behalf of the government, to be treated, not given what you need to do your job.
Well, and can't you hear that, Edie, when Carly says every piece every day, it's going to get out, rain or shine. I mean, really, I can hear that come through your voice, Carly, when you're like, it's just going to get done,
And we, we are, I want to say, the largest employer of vets in the United States. So I want to say 1/4 of our workforce are retired vets. So
not only do those that were former military or retired military, also those of us that just have never served but are in the Postal Service, it's kind of a generational thing between carriers that start on and start training the new people, the way of life in the Postal Service, and how personally the letter carriers, I think we like to say that the reason that the Postal Service has a 90% approval rating, and we are the most trusted government agency in polls for the last 10 years, is not because of what the clerks do. And this is not a bash on the clerks by any means, because they are a crucial part of what we do. But we like to think that it's the letter carriers, because that is who the general public sees. That's who they make contact with, unless they are a daily visitor to the Postal Service, and they do know their clerks well. But I know a lot of you on this this presentation or our Zoom meeting today know your letter carrier by name. At Tom and Ken's, their letter carrier came in and sat down and had a bottle of water with us, and so we build up these relationships, and I think that we are a really proud craft, and there are very few bad apples in the group that would try to do anything devious with your ballots.
Yeah.
It just, I just don't see it happening. If it is, it's a very slim amount that would actually happen. But for the most part, everybody is really getting every piece out every day.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to see, I think we've actually touched on a few of these. This last slide, closing the presentation tonight, was not only do not procrastinate and complete your ballot or your application for your ballot right away. Liz, you were saying that possibly it was either on the application, whatever you received, it says return this within 4 days.
Can't see me. Okay. It was on the website that I read that.
Okay.
Once you submitted a request electronically, it said that you had to also mail in your request on paper. So it was on the website for Travis County.
Good deal. Yeah, and you know, the way you think about it, if we all wait until middle of October to do something, we're just crushing the system like it's Christmas again, like it's a holiday period, like, you know, and as we saw in their first set of slides, it's not considerate. Back to what Ken said, you know, there's ways we can help the Postal Service do as best it can. And even like Sue and Ann, you're asking right now that the sorting machines are, some of them have been removed. Carly and Darcel, can you speak to that? How those Postal Service depots will keep up with the demand with their?
Sure. Well, part of it is because of COVID, we've actually seen a decrease in first class letters. So it really wouldn't affect our,
it just slows it to how it gets to its point. So it would slow it down in terms of once it's sent to the processing center, it's not going to be processed as quickly. It's still going to get to the destination. It's just going to slow it down because there aren't as many machines. And in rural areas in particular, sometimes the machine is already quite a few miles away. And if they remove one of those, it goes even further and has to be trucked back to the associate office it's delivered out of. So it does affect the mail and how a first class mail. Priority packages and express mail are still really trying to get them on the trucks every piece every day because that's what our customers pay for. And sometimes they are slowed down, but the processing machines itself, it's just that it takes so much longer for them to be sorted by hand with a clerk, so they run them through the machines. And if we have less machines, obviously it'll slow it down, especially if we still have a similar volume. And the volume is going to pick up greatly when we start getting mail-in ballots being returned to us, or mail-in ballots that we're actually sending out, delivering to the home for the first time.
So Carly, if I can ask, Carly, in answer to your question and kind of jumping on the back of what Sue and Ann just shared, the sorting machines, they are actually impacting the letters, the things we're talking about. They're not impacting packages as much, but they are impacting a letter, which is what a ballot or a request for an absentee ballot, an application, those are going to be more impacted by these machines being taken out.
Right. Well, but one of the things that it just dawned on me that I hadn't thought about when we were talking earlier, Joe, is that has anyone noticed that a ballot being mailed to you is an awkward size? It's thicker than a letter, taller and longer, and that's kind of I think it's done on purpose because of the fact that it differentiates pieces of mail for us. If something happened to us and we lost power, or our machines broke down, or our PMG removes them and we don't have them to work, then the clerks, when they're sorting, it's easy for them to find that piece of mail because we deal with the same type of size and weight daily. So when we have a little odd bird, they're really easy to pick out for us. So even though we have less machines, if we have to sort by hand, it's still a very quick process to sort by hand.
Yeah.
Because of their size.
Good deal. So to number 2, read the instructions carefully and double and triple check your answers. Once again, this actually goes into the state or the county that's actually designing the ballots, right? You want to make sure that the ballot, whatever your choices are, that you're executing those choices properly on the ballot as given to you by your county/state. Double and triple check it. And then when you're mailing it, if you're going to use your mailbox, as some of us would, you put that red flag up, or a couple options. Local post office. I know here in Cadillac, Michigan, Cheryl and I, we've got a gentleman who comes and does our mail every day. On the other hand, if we miss him at noon, we've got till 4:30. And I think this top picture up here, we actually have a drive-through box, Carly and Darcel, in our town next to the post office.
Oh, good.
Go ahead. We don't have to get out of the car and go in. We can do the drive-through. And that also feels very secure because it's a big, long neck. I think you guys have a name for those boxes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We call them snorkels.
Snorkel boxes.
Yeah.
So that's an option. And all the way down to number 6, if you have a voter drop box or a polling place, and this is an if, in your local community, you can again take the weight off of the post office and the question out of your mind, did it get to the place where they're gonna, count my ballot? So you can do that. Back to number 6.
But also, Joe, don't sit on it. Make sure you get it filled out and sent in.
However you choose to send it in.
However you choose to do it. Some states actually start counting ballots right away. Vote by mail is Washington, Oregon, California this year, Utah, I think Montana, and I'm not sure what the other ones are, but they already
Colorado.
they all vote by mail. Colorado, yes,
yeah.
Thank you. But they will start. Some states will already start counting.
Relieves their backlog too.
Exactly, sure. And the more of us that can go a little bit early and help them out, the better. Early mailing, again, number 4, allows the post office time to get the ballot delivered, and early arrival with the registrar allows for some early counting. So any other questions before we close the Carly and Darcel show?
There's been a lot of questions in our chat box that we haven't, there's some real good ones.
We're getting most of them, I think, unless you see one, Darcel or Carly, that I haven't seen yet.
Well, we have, there's 57. We haven't really been looking at them. They just pop up as we're sitting here, but
we're getting them to you. We're feeding them to you. I think this last one, Sue and Ann is saying that the new postmaster is telling the carriers to leave early and leave mail behind. Do you know that to be true, or is that part of the?
Well, I'll try to be.
And Carly, you work for the union, right? You're a union.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I am a union president, so I probably, my view of how management handles things is probably not the best because I see the worst of them. However, we are seeing that those things are happening, and I didn't really want to make it kind of political, and in a sense, it really is, because if you track back things of how this new PMG came about and the changes that have been made, they are happening, and the claim is that logistically it's going to save us money. The claim is that we're losing money because we're not selling enough product at a high enough price, and or we're not doing enough first class volume, when all actuality the reason that we are not profitable for the last 10 years is due to a 2006 mandate in Congress that's requiring our agency, the only government agency with this requirement, to pre-fund employees' health care for 75 years out, which is a $5.6 billion payment per year. We're funding health care for people that have not been born yet. And no other agency has that. So if we have to pay out $5.6 billion, and then all of the rest of this goes back to putting into the business to keep it self-sustaining, yeah, we have a little bit of a loss, but we wouldn't be showing a loss if we didn't have that requirement. But that being said, we still have, we still make quite a bit of money in all the parcels, all of just first class stamps. I mean, all the things we do. But the sad part is that I don't know if you've ever seen our vehicles. We're driving vehicles that are 25 and 30 years old. And we don't have the funds we don't have air conditioners. These vehicles are aluminum. They literally are held together with rivets. And when we get out into the heat, they become a microwave oven. When I carry mail, I take a burrito to work and put it in my dash. And by the time I'm ready to eat lunch, it's almost too hot to touch because it's been in this vehicle. And we have a fan. If your fan is working and you bring your own fuses to change it, you'll get this. You'll get a fan and it blows the hot air on you. But all of these things, we would have a better and more proficient and efficient service if we could put some of our money back into it to make these changes. But the changes that he's proposing are not saving money. And the answer is yes, trucks are being told to leave early without mail on them, because keeping the truck schedule in his mind is saving money. And if mail sits, then it sits. Are they telling us to leave mail that's not there yet? Yes. We've always waited every time if a truck was late, because our motto is an unofficial motto, but it is our motto that we've had for many, many years, is every piece, every day. And if our trucks are late, we wait a little bit, or maybe we'll go out and deliver some parcels and we'll come back and pick it up. But it's what I'm really proud of is that even though we're bucking the system, there are quite a few clerks and carriers that will absolutely refuse, and they're doing what they need to do, and they're servicing their people regardless of what happens. And if they get in trouble, guess what? If they're on my branch, they're going to call me for help because they're going to be in trouble, and all the other union people to help them. But there are many people that aren't following those orders because they really want to get the mail out, especially when they're parcels, because so many veterans that receive health care through the VA have a requirement that the prescriptions go through the mail, and they don't have a choice. That's how it works. Yep. And you can't just go to CVS and pick it up. It has to be delivered. And if we're holding stuff like that back, I mean, things are crucial. Diabetics, for me, what if I don't get my meds? I'm not in the VA system, so I can go down to CVS if I can't get something. But not everybody can do that. And we know our customers. We know who needs that. So that's why people are just doing what they need to do to get the mail to their people.
Fabulous. Fabulous. There's one great question. Lucia's asking, how can we show support, and especially now when you tell us some of our postal workers are absolute heroes, bucking the system and continuing to do what's right, even though there might be some risk in that. How can we show support for our postal workers right now in this challenging time?
Well, I guess it depends on the level of which you want to be active in. If it's something simple as leaving a note for your carrier, whether they're a rural carrier or whether they are a city carrier, leave them a note and tell them that you see them and you appreciate what they do. Leave them a frozen bottle of water. When you know that they come to your house at 10, go out there right before 10 and put it in your box. It's the simple things like that that people really appreciate. But in terms of like civil, I don't know, if you want to contact your senator or congressman, you can always talk about how upset you are that these changes are slowing down the Postal Service. And if it affects you personally, like your medication is slowing down, those are things that they need to know. Yeah. Because let's be real honest here, the Postal Service should not be a partisan issue. We are bipartisan, and how, as of now, somehow the new PMG and the president have now made it partisan. And some of our senators have gone along with it, even though the majority of their constituents are in a rural area and depend on the Postal Service because of the fact that FedEx and UPS do not go to every address like we do.
We deliver something called the last mile.
Yep.
And that is UPS, FedEx will back up their trucks to the post office, unload thousands of parcels, and we deliver it for them in rural areas. I delivered them in Burbank.
Yeah. So it's cost savings for UPS and FedEx not to go to every address. So they have a contract with the Postal Service where they do the last mile for addresses that they don't go to all the time. So they leave them for us to deliver. And sometimes, has anybody ever gotten a parcel and maybe it's something that you bought that doesn't fit and you need to return it, and you're looking at all these labels going like, there's a Postal Service label, there's a UPS label, where do I take this thing? That's because of the last mile. So UPS will track it to us and then we'll get it out to you. And so I would say if it's calling your senator and your congress people, you can write letters, you can get on their website and send them emails. In general, you can just vote, because there is clear cut who wants to keep the post office and who doesn't.
Well, and I'm loving you go. What I want to say, I mean, the messages that have come clear to me is that we could offer a challenge to ourselves. We could post that challenge on our social media. We could post that challenge to our friends and family by phone and text and message. One, make a decision and act on it this week, right? Whether that, again, like Ken, you said, instead of waiting for that, I'm gonna phone tomorrow and say, do I need to request an absentee ballot or an application for an absentee ballot? If it's a state where I'm gonna mail, we're 100% mail-in voting. Have you gotten something that says you're going to get a ballot, look for your ballot in the mail? Any of those things, and then when you get it, act on it quickly. There's absolutely no reason, if you know who you're going to vote for, not to do it right away. I mean, we really heard that loud and clear. Carly and Darcel, you two have been phenomenal tonight. And before I do one little tiny piece of advertising, could you please unmute yourselves and give these two some serious Sanctuary Online love? Man, oh man, oh man.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, Tom?
I put cookies in our mailbox for our delivery.
Yay.
Yay.
Tom, say that again, my friend.
Okay. I put homemade cookies in.
I heard that loud and clear. I love, Carly, also the frozen bottle of water. Not even a bottle of water. Freeze that baby and put that out there. Most of us know what time our mail comes. I think that's a fantastic idea. And that shows not only love and care, but even a little more, right? Like we know what they're going through. Man, oh man. Yeah. Great.
One of the things that we did when the summers here, we call it the devil's armpit where we live because we're in triple digits. However, I know we're California, we don't have the humidity that Texas has, but we have triple digits all day, every day for 4 months out of the year. So when we are really hot here, we have our letter carrier here. His name is Martin, and he is awesome and great. And we leave an ice chest on our porch. And he knows that, well, he knows I'm the union president, but he knows that he can just come up to the porch and he can help himself. And we've left him little things that don't melt in the mailbox because they will when they get hot. Yeah. But just a little note to say that you appreciate what they do. People's kids have drawn us pictures and just little things, and $5. We've gotten little gift cards to Starbucks and things like that, and so
great.
Yeah, we do appreciate that.
But Lucia, I was going to tell you, don't even bother contacting your congressman because Adam Schiff is on with this.
Right, he's of our
totally
biggest
on
supporters.
with this.
Yeah. So if anybody, are we getting kicked off?
Well, we're a little past 9, and we always love, loving on our folks. And again, as we said this afternoon, we could talk on and on and on about this, but I think you all have you've cut through the fake news, you've cut through and answered some great questions, you've given us information, you've challenged us to do what we need to do right away, and you've given us the reasons why, right? The context for how this will make a difference if we can take action as quickly as possible. Once we're decided, take the action. I want to also encourage you, and I've got a testimonial here coming up from Ann. As I said earlier, we have a book club, a book each month And at the end of the month, so not till September 29th, so there's still plenty of time to get it, download it, read it, buy it, whatever you do with books. But Anne, we've been telling people what a great book, what a great read, Where the Crawdads Sing is, and I heard you just finished that this week, eh? Can you come off mute?
It's awesome.
It was an awesome read. It wasn't one that I necessarily would have chosen until I heard Cheryl talk about it. So I highly recommend it.
Thank you. Ellen, you chiming in down there a minute?
Yeah, I've read it. I read it for a other book club that I belong to, and I have to say, it will keep you up past your bedtime. And it's got a twist at the end that just is like an M. Night Shyamalan twist. It's awesome.
I know. The ending, I keep telling Cheryl, I'm going to read it again. And when I read the ending the first time, I do it on Audible. And I listened to it, I think 3 and 4 and 5 times. I went back just to pick it up. So
yeah.
Plenty of time to read, friends. This will be a great conversation. And Cheryl's a phenomenal host. So September 29th, that's the last week of the month. Next week, I'm going to do Zoom 201 one more time. We lost the recording on that, believe it or not, unfortunately. And so I'm putting together an even better Zoom 201 session. Oh, dogs. Hello, girls. Anyway, that's next week. In the middle of the month, we still are working out our calendar. But we're very excited. I think we have a really phenomenal 1-2 punch the middle 2 weeks of the month. So stay tuned. Open your email. We send it through email, not the US Postal Service mail. Still very important. And we thank each and every one of you for your loyalty, for your love, and for spending your Tuesday evenings here with us at Sanctuary in the Woods, sanctuaryonline.live. Time for
everyone.
Hey.
If anybody has any other questions and you have Darcel's phone number or mine and you want us to answer something about the post office that we can answer, feel free to contact us.
Yeah, I have a question. Where are the kitties?
They're in their little crate. They're so loud when they're right before feeding time, and then we would have had to hear them for an hour and a half.
But maybe
You
now
want
you
us
can
to go grab them?
You want me to go get them to make an appearance? Okay.
Yes.